So welcome to the Entrepreneur's Advantage. I'm here with Joy McAdams and Jason Barker, Dr. Jason Barker. And they have an interesting story to share on how they met. But first and foremost, I want you two to share, give a little bit about your background, what you do. And today, we always go with the four things. There's four things you have to have in business to grow, to be predictable, to predictably grow your business. And it's technique, it's behaviors, it's strategy, but the foundation has to do with our attitude and our mindset. And we're going to talk about that today. We have some really cool stuff. I wish some of our conversation before we started recording this was part of the recording. So Joy, give us some of your background. Let us know who you are, what you do.
Sure. So I got really active on LinkedIn, probably going on 2 years now. And, it changed my life. So I would challenge everybody, just like we were talking before the recording, that it's not just about getting on here and chasing business. It's about building relationships and building a community. It's not about views and likes. It's about building a community. And, actually today's my birthday. So it's been mind blowing that the messages and just the love from my LinkedIn friend. I mean, they truly are my friends. And the way it's gotten to that point is because I've been consistent and showed up on a regular basis, doing my best to, just to add value wherever I could. So I work in the medical industry. I try to incorporate a growth mindset into medical practices, private practices, trying to help them get out there, build those relationships so that their business can flourish. I also help, especially now post-COVID, family internal medicine and pediatricians just create a whole different revenue cycle for new revenue for them through concierge medicine. So, we're doing everything we can to preserve and save the private practice. On top of that, I'm a mom to 5. I'm an endurance athlete, and I really stress that healthy collaboration between family, work, life, and health.
That's amazing. Okay, wait, hold 1 second, Jason, before you introduce yourself. This is your birthday song, okay?
Oh, no.
It's your birthday song. It isn't very long. Okay, happy birthday, Joy.
Oh, that's
Jason.
awesome.
Happy birthday, Joy.
Hey,
I'm Dr. Jason Barker. So I'm trained as a general practitioner, but I've got a focus on helping active and athletic people be as healthy as they can. So a lot of what I do is I go after the cause of what's wrong with people rather than just treating symptoms. So we don't
Love that.
hand out drugs necessarily. If somebody has, a symptom, that's your body telling you something's off. So I peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and we do a lot of very detailed testing, looking at people's biochemistry, their physiology, kind of what makes them tick. And then we work from a natural medicine, prevention, wellness standpoint to help people optimize their health, essentially. So I do that. I have a private practice here in Colorado, and then I also can see people online. I'm set up to work, more so these days with COVID, it's made it a lot easier. But so I can see people all over the place. And then I've been on LinkedIn sporadically, and Joy and I met, maybe a year ago, not even that long ago. And we worked together professionally. And then, we just hit it off because she's an endurance athlete. I'm an endurance athlete. Also, I've done some Ironmans and all kinds of, I like to mountaineer and do a lot of other things like that. And then I'm also a dad of 3. And that's what I do is I tell people, what are you doing? I'm working and raising kids. And then I try and go do some fun endurance events here and there too. So that's my story.
All right. I appreciate it. So go a little bit into that, either one of you, how you met on LinkedIn, because Joy, you're talking about using LinkedIn as not just growing your business, but building relationships. And it's kind of cool, the backstory of how you two met. And if you guys can talk about you guys met and then what happened as far as is it the Grand Canyon? What was it called again? The rate, not
Rim to rim to rim.
Rim to rim to rim. So
yeah. So I'll tell you real quickly. So I am known for professionally stalking people on LinkedIn because here's the bottom line. When I find people that I'm like I was talking about, I want to get in the room with them, right? Because I want to learn, I want to get better. And then I want to come to them and offer them. I have built a very big platform now. So the nice thing is I can go to them and tell them, look, I'll promote anything you have coming up. You know, I go in giving, absolutely, but it's just because I want to get to know these people and learn from them. And I've met so many amazing people that way. And so for Dr. Barker, after my growth physically last year, ending with a full Ironman, I came into some physical issues that kind of just like threw me for a huge loop. And it made me realize, you know, all these doctors I'm seeing, they're just looking at me and saying, okay, you're fine. Because I was fine for just the average person, but for somebody who wants to level up and wants to continue to grow and get stronger and, you know, compete at a higher level, I needed a physician that understood, you know, what my body and where my body needed to be at. And so that's when I found Dr. Barker on LinkedIn. I reached out to him, and then, you know, I ensued his services as my concierge type, you know, doctor. And he really just brought me a long way. We started off running tons of labs and tests, and I've never felt stronger. And so we kind of created this friendship. And then, Jason, I'll let you tell how did the Rim to Rim come about?
Yeah, so that, so, you know, we obviously in touch on LinkedIn, and Joy had some big races coming up this fall. And one of her posts, she was lamenting about how they'd been canceled and she was all trained up to do an Ironman. And so she's kind of left holding the bags, you know, so to speak, with this race. And she said, what can I do next? And somebody put up that, why don't you go run the Rim to Rim to Rim in the Grand Canyon? And I saw that, and I had some buddies that had done it last year, but I missed the boat. I didn't go with them. And I was, you know, I was sorry about that. So as soon as I saw that post, I, you know, got on there and said, I'll do it with you. And so then, you know, it kind of went from there. And, you know, then obviously we communicated a lot offline about how to figure this thing out and get it done, but we were able to do it. So that's how the Rim to Rim to Rim happened.
That is so cool. And I was just sharing the story before we got on to or started recording this, and how I had an entrepreneur reach out to me, and we've become accountability partners. Joy, can you speak to that? Because we were talking before, as far as getting in a room with other people that challenge you to take you outside your comfort zone, and just the mindset component of that, and how it's so important, not just with the physical, but in business. If you could bring that together for us, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Sure, absolutely. And if anyone that's followed me for any length of time, which I built quite a community, so there's a lot of people that do know the entire story. But, you know, about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, I was up against the wall professionally, and I was just banging my head in the same direction, getting nowhere. And finally it hit me, you know, to focus on my physical side for focus. And I trained for my first marathon. That took me on an incredible journey, which then led, because once your growth starts, especially physically, you start the momentum and it just keeps going. I mean, it's not going to stop. And that's why on my Fitness Fridays, I just start challenging everybody. Anything's better than nothing. You know, I'm not saying go run an Ironman or a marathon or even 3 miles. I'm just saying do one thing every day that, you know, that's going to get you up off the couch and just get you active. Because I know if you can just start consistently doing one thing, no matter how big or how small, it's going to start the momentum. And that's all you need is that momentum, because then that turns into movement, and that movement, because you get addicted to how you feel, you know, the confidence that comes within yourself, plus physically how you feel, your emotional, your mental, everything changes. So yeah, I took off the journey of doing a marathon, and then a triathlon, and then a half Ironman, and then a full Ironman. And I was just like so hooked by the whole journey and all the mindset that came along with it. And my business grew right alongside it, right? Because that confidence and that grit, because when you are in a race, just like when we were at the Grand Canyon, like Jason was saying, once you go in the canyon, it either takes you or you take the canyon. You can't just say, okay, I quit, let me just walk off to the side. You got to get out of there. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, all these mindsets of that grit and that determination, which totally we needed this year, right? In 2020. I mean, we all needed that leaning into pain and recognizing that that pain is breaking you down and actually making you stronger. And when your mindset changes, you know, physically in that direction, it changes professionally, it changes personally. And so that's why I'm so big on the growth mindset and on challenging yourself physically. And now that Jason and I have done this race together, we've become like a little challenging buddies, because now we're looking at all these other events and we're like, we got to do this, we got to do that. So it's a good thing. to have something like that.
Help people understand. So you had the rim to rim to rim to rim to rim, right? 3 rims in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jason, tell them how far it was and the logistics of it.
Okay, so you start at the south rim, which is the popular, I guess, side of the Grand Canyon, and you run 7 miles distance down to the bottom of the canyon, and that's a mile descent in elevation. So it's steep, right? And get to the bottom of the canyon, you cross the Colorado River, and then you run about 8.5 miles kind of through the canyon, which, it's rolling hills, so to speak. And then
and you're not swimming across the Colorado River, right?
That's next year.
Not this time.
That's next year. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
But so you get to that end of that 8.6 miles, and then you hit the wall of the north rim, and so that's 5 miles up, and that's very steep. And then you get to the north rim, and that's kind of it's kind of the quiet end of the canyon, I guess. And then you go back down that 5 miles, which again is about a mile descent in elevation. So you're pounding on your legs.
What's the temperature?
It was beautiful. It probably was in the high 30s or 40s in the morning.
Okay, not too bad.
And then got up in the 70s. So it was perfect weather.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect. And then, so you go back down from the north rim, back that 8.5 miles, and then back up the south rim, which I think is, I can't remember, 8 or 9 or 10 miles. It took a long time. So it's a total of about 47 miles and 20,000 feet in elevation change, because you go a mile down, mile up, mile back down, mile back up. So it's a big deal. It was fun.
So
one of the most challenging things was just the change in terrain. Like I had never done a trail. I had really never done trail running at all. So that was a big jump for me. I had to learn, run with trekking poles and like run with a backpack, and because it's all self-assisted. You have to take everything with you for the whole day. So I had to jump in and even get in a headlamp, and I had to learn all of that really quickly. But it's just to the terrain, because you go from these hard embedded rocks and narrow paths to gravel, to thick sand, to running through this narrow path where like the brush is hitting you in your face, to the climbing. And I just remember, so Jason led the way, and when I would see his legs start running, I was like, oh shoot, you're kidding. We're gonna run up this hill? Okay, here we go. So all day, he was really pacing us and leading the way. And I'm so glad I had him, because I probably would have still been wandering the canyon. It would have taken me, it took us 22 hours, but I probably would have been out of there probably another 4, 5, 6 hours.
Well, the video I saw him, he was just like sitting there at the top.
Oh yeah.
So question, because you're mentioning all these things: up, down, rock, sand, narrow. It's life, right?
Yeah,
and a lot of people that watch this, they can't relate to being an Ironman athlete, Right. So how, with the mindset, you have a goal to attain, and you just came off video, Joy. You have a goal to obtain. So take us through the journey with someone who's an entrepreneur. They have a business. Maybe they're doing a little bit of physical activity. How do you set your mind and prepare for that? And how can someone take this away and some nuggets of information that they can apply to their business? Because maybe they're struggling right now. This has been a surreal year. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. How can you help them relate to what you went through and how you got to where you got to help them where they are right now to take the next step? Because it's all about progress, not perfection. I know sometimes I can look at an Ironman athlete and look at you guys and like, whoa, In my own story, well, I'll get to that in a second, but could you give us some nuggets, Jason, Joy, that they can take away and apply, because they are facing in their life this rim to rim to rim. It may not be an endurance course, but it has to do with their business, and they're really struggling right now.
Sure. Jason, you go ahead and go first.
Well, that's a perfect way to draw an analogy. So, as an entrepreneur, it's like, yeah, we're excited to start this business, and you do all your research and you get all your things lined up to start the business. And then, so that's us prepping for this run. We're all excited. You get out on the run, you start doing your business, and you come through little hurdles like the terrain changes and the sand, and there's these rocks you had to kind of hop over that, so there's a lot of stuff on the way that breaks your stride. But despite our strides being broken by these things, we persisted. And that's the big word that comes out of this for me, is persistence. So it was all, pretty relaxing, pretty fun, enjoying the ride up to the North Rim, coming back down. And then, started getting dark, it's getting late. Your body's starting to not have fun anymore. But we'd had this, this project like a business where we had to see it finished. So just like in life and business and in the run, we went through a very, very dark period too. And that is coming back up out of that canyon, because the map is not very specific, and it was dark. And so we missed some waypoints. And so our heads were we're getting very messed with, I guess. So perfect analogy of life and business. But, we had one goal, and that was to finish and to get out of there. And so we just persisted. We'd stop, reorganize, recalibrate our heads. We'd check in with each other's heads. You good? Yeah, we're good. So that's what I took away from this, is just persistence. Put your head down, drive on, and then you'll get to that goal eventually. So that's kind of my takeaway from this.
And think about this. If Joy didn't come into your life and you into her life, you wouldn't have run that. And Joy, you were really struggling with it sounds like some physical ailments, or you were stuck, it sounded like. And so if we don't have other people who can speak into our life and give us direction and some clarity, because confidence comes from having clarity, you two probably wouldn't have done that. And probably be where you are today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll just tell you what I learned, not just from Rim to Rim, because all this endurance stuff is literally still so new to me, right? It was the beginning of 2020 that I even beginning of 2019 that I even started this. So, it's all so new to me. But what I learned so much along the way was, number one, don't be afraid to not be good at stuff, right? So, it's so prideful. One of the most humbling things is I had to learn how to swim. I mean, I knew how to swim recreationally, but I had no clue how to swim, like any distance. Right. I had to learn how to bike. I had to learn all these things. And along the way, I was feeling so stupid and so much like a novice. And the same thing, when you start a business journey, don't act like you know everything, because you don't, right? And be okay with asking people who are ahead of you, how do I do this? Do your research, just like the Rim to Rim, there was a Facebook page, and we were on there constantly trying to see what everybody else was saying and learn from them and their tips and tricks. So be open to all of that. You really got to drop the pride. And then, lean into these new things. And what I learned along the way too with everything was, initially my first events that I did, I was so fearful the night before, right? Like sick, fearful. And then gradually, after I accomplished those two things, it's having the courage to show up. For me, swimming was my biggest fear. And then at my last event, my Ironman, my biggest one, I wasn't fearful anymore. But I had that fear had been replaced with a respect for the preparation and the grit it was going to take to get through that. And when you can switch that mindset from fear to respect, that's how I went into the Grand Canyon, right? Yeah, when I first pulled up to the Grand Canyon, I hadn't been there since I was like in 4th grade. When I pulled up with my husband the day before and I stood over the Grand Canyon, I was like, oh shoot, what was I thinking?
I've been there.
Like,
yes.
This is huge. Like, it was just overwhelming.
But
then my mind went right back to, you prepared, you've trained. Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be pain. Be ready, show up and take the pain. And, one of these Ironman that I follow, he did this awesome post, and it was about, knowing there's going to be pain and suffering, but showing up anyway, willing to take part in it. So when we change our mindset about struggle and pain, and it changes, you're expecting it, you're welcoming it, you're realizing as you're going through the process that it's actually breaking you down and making you stronger, that changes everything. And even like along our journey that day, I was probably driving him crazy, but I kept coming up with scenarios in my mind that were harder. Like, we started talking about the Tour de France, and I was like, can you imagine those guys? And I think once both of our minds went to pretty much a month of pain, what we were doing seemed like nothing, right? I'm like, what we're feeling right now and the fatigue, when we started thinking about those guys, we're like, wow, we are like so far removed from anything like that. And when you can start to look at, there's always going to be someone that's struggling more, that's had more loss, that's been through more than you. When
Right.
you can take your eyes off yourself and look in that direction, then you come back and you have a whole different perspective of what you're going through.
Right.
And, you know, I think that gives you that little glimpse of hope. And all we need, we know as humans that all we need is a little glimpse of hope to keep us going. And when you learn how to do the mindset to tap into that, whether it's family, you know, challenges, business challenges, physical challenges, then you kind of have that nugget and you have that answer to how you're going to get through this. And it's just finding the way to create that little bit of hope.
So talk to that, because people will think, okay, here's Joy. She's married. She's got 5 kids. She's got a business. She's an endurance athlete. I mean, it's easy for people to think, well, she's just has some special DNA. So she's in a class by herself, right? Isn't it? So is there a place and time in your life? You talked about changing your mindset. So a lot of times people don't understand with changing their mindset. Have you ever heard of how they train fleas?
No.
Have you ever seen a flea circus?
No. I mean, I've kind of heard about it.
Okay. So they put fleas in a jar and they put a lid on it. And I don't know if they have, are you down in Florida, Joy?
I'm from Florida, but I don't live in Georgia.
Well, you probably have fleas where you are. So fleas could jump out of the jar. So they put a lid on it and the fleas jump and it's like, ow, ow, ow. And pretty soon they're not jumping as high because hitting your head on the lid of the jar hurts, right? And so they take the lid off the jar and the fleas could easily jump out, but they don't. They put in this little thing, you know, and they have them jump through hoops and whatnot. But in life, as humans, we're like fleas because we have that pain from the past. We hit our head over and over and over again. So how, was there a time in your life where you're just naturally, it's like, I just went for it and I enjoyed the pain and I understood that this pain is going to help me get to the next level? Was there something in particular that helped you understand growth mindset? Because you talked about that before as opposed to fixed mindset. And Carol Dweck's book really speaks to that. How can someone, as they're going through the pain and the agony, get to the point where they're reframing it and understand that's necessary for growth and look at it that, oh, okay, I understand this is part of it, as opposed to continually hitting their head and not realizing that now the lid's off the jar, but they're still in there afraid to jump out.
Yeah. Jason, do you want to go first on this?
You know, you're constantly reframing things, and you're constantly, one of my favorite sayings is, I don't remember who said it, but it's like, you've got to constantly pull the weeds out of your mind because they'll grow and they'll come up. And so, you know, after a while you get tired of it. And that's something that happened on the run is, you know, towards the end of our way up out of there, you know, and I told this story before in a video, but, you know, we were stressing, we were tired, we were late, you know, Joy's husband was supposed to pick us up at like 9. He said, oh, we'll be back. It was like after midnight. So I started worrying and you start stressing, and I was like, this is not how I want to do this. This is not the memory I want to have. I don't want to be stressed out. I want to have fun. So I was able to pull those weeds out and put the brakes on that. And, you know, constantly reframing this, like, I'm having fun. I'm in the Grand Canyon. This is cool. Look at this. You know, the stars were amazing. It was, you know, so we both like had to kind of check our heads, as they say, and continually reframe that. So I hope that answers your question somewhat.
Yeah, I love that. And it's not about, I have a mentor that drilled this into my head. He said, perfection is the opposite of doing and being done. It's about progress, not perfection. And that's just in my mind. Progress is doing something. And a lot of times we think we have to be perfectionists, and that keeps us from moving forward. So as we start to wind up, what do you find that's maybe 1 to 3 things that's important? Maybe morning routine. What is essential? Joy, you talked about physical fitness. Someone out there, they're struggling. What's one thing they can do, maybe just one thing, that they can do to help them right here and now to get them to either jumping out of the jar or just taking that step forward because fear has been stopping them because of some pain from their past that they can't get over?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, and I know this is mentioned so much, and I never want this to become cliche, but at the heart of everything is gratefulness, right? Like,
Love that.
when you ask like what I've faced or have I always been positive, like I came to a crossroads about 10 years ago, mid-30s, where I lost everything. You know, I mean, literally everything. I was working. I had a really comfortable life at that time. I had been working for my brother for 10 plus years, very well compensated. And just because of the way I grew up, I kind of grew up in a cult type setting, and I just felt this pressure, like I needed to break out. I needed to kind of rebel. It was just a lot of emotional struggle for me. And I ended up going through a divorce. Well, that doesn't fly well with my family and my upbringing. So I was fired. I lost any type of job reference. All my family just cut me off. Here I am, 3 kids, bank accounts frozen, no money, everyone just trying to force me to do what they wanted me to do. And like, how do you come out of that? You know, you have no job reference, you have no job, no income, no bank account access, 3 kids to watch. I mean, like, what do you do? Right? It was the biggest struggle of my whole life that year to come through that and to really realize that I could make it on my own, despite growing up in this male dominated, you can't do without a man type society. And so being able to get through that and come through that, and that's a whole story in itself, but I was just left with so much gratefulness for second chances, for the ability to even have an income, to like, you get stripped from this beautiful life to nothing overnight. And it's like, wow, how quickly things can be taken from us. Right. And so even when it comes to our physical, like even when this health challenge came up this last year, it once again threw me into that. It's a privilege to be able to get out there and run, and to have the freedom to push myself as hard as I can. And like, it's truly now every day when I go to work out and I push myself, I don't ever take for granted what a privilege that is. So many people would love to be able to get out in there and do that. And yet here we are taking for granted our health and trashing it and eating poorly and not exercising. And like, I think that's the biggest slap in the face to God, who gave us such incredible bodies. I mean, to be honest, like it's the biggest in your face, I don't appreciate what you've given me. And so it's out of gratitude. Everything I do is out of gratitude. All my attitudes, everything, because I know how quickly you can lose everything. And so that's my underlying, message and how I love my life.
Yeah, I had chills while you're saying that, and I appreciate the backstory. See, Joy is just like anyone. I mean, she had problems. She's not like always been perfect Ironman athlete doing all these different things. I mean, she has struggles just like anyone else. I hear be grateful, and I'm like, okay, thank you, Lord, for the. I had COVID for 2.5 months, and it was like really bad. I mean, I had to sleep 12 hours a day, and I couldn't function more than 4 to 5 hours a day or I'd get sicker. And I had a morning routine and Wim Hof breathing. The gratitude though, I started and I do like 25 to 30 things, and it got my mind off of how I felt and what I had and what I got to do. And I was getting to the place, I have water, I have shelter, I have food, I got this bed that I'm in right now. It changes your perspective on life when you understand all that you have and you get to do in those people in your life. And I just wanted to add to what Joy is saying, because a lot of times people hear that and are like, oh, grateful. It's life-changing. I was getting, as I said, as you were saying that, I was getting chills. Jason, thoughts?
You're going to make me follow Joy's story with that? Okay. So I guess for me, it's...
I should have had you go first. Sorry. Go ahead.
For me, it's, I have a thing I remind myself too, is that you create your own reality. And that's a lot of that is our thoughts, and we're able to choose what we think. And so, if you're driving to work and somebody cuts you off and there's traffic and, people are rude, and you can let that set your day, and you can be angry and irritated and, oh, I'm late, or you can just kind of let go and know that that's what is going on right now. So we choose our reactions, and by doing so, we create our own reality. So that's kind of how I try and navigate these same things. Of course, I do a morning routine where I count my blessings, say my prayers, line out my day, and, create my reality for the day. And if I don't do that, it can go really sideways pretty quickly sometimes. So that's how I approach those things in my life.
Is there something specific that you do in the morning that has made more of an impact when you started implementing it than any of the others, or is it all of those things combined?
I think it's all of them combined. It's just waking up, and so many people, you know, we know this story. Everybody wakes up and starts scrolling on their phone, and it's just your head's getting ping ponged around with all this really useless stuff. If you think about it. So I quit doing that most of the time, and so I'm very regimented in the morning about, you know, I read my things, I think my thoughts, and so yeah, I guess it's all of those, and I get up before anybody else is around, and that way I've set my tone, so to speak, for the day, and then that's what carries me through the rest of that day.
That makes a huge difference. When I started doing a morning routine, I don't know if you guys know Robin Sharma. Mm-hmm. I have a combination of like Tony Robbins, Robin Sharma, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and a bunch of other people in my head, and a little bit of Chaz thrown in there. And not having like, here we are the day after the election, it's not called yet, at least I know. And so there's that anxiousness, and I want to go and see what's going on. But if I go into like my email or phone or social media, it's other people's stuff, not mine. And you have to protect that time in the morning. If you don't, I don't know what it would be like, because I've been doing this now for about a year and a half. But before, I just went into my day, and Jason, you talked about, you know, in traffic, it's like, you know, you're reacting as opposed to responding, and having that foundation and getting your mind focused just really helps and changes everything. I have enjoyed this so much. I've literally had chills as you were talking and as you were talking, Joy, because I look at you and I see the connection and how you guys connected. I'm like, there's so much opportunity out there. And I love talking with other entrepreneurs because they have a growth mindset and they're accomplishing great things. And then when you have just a ordinary conversation, you see that, hey, it's not that they're super special DNA. They're ordinary people that were able to deal with some problems and get to a place, and now they can inspire other people. Any final thoughts?
Chaz, the only thing I say this a lot is, and somebody else, and I don't want to take credit for this, I saw this somewhere, but you have a choice every day of what kind of person you're going to be, right? So average people do average things every day. High performers do high performing things every day, and lazy people, well, they don't do much of anything every day. So every day, those choices you make are determining what kind of person you are. Like you said, it's not, don't look at this person way down the road and be like, I can never be that. You got to look at each day. What am I going to do today that is just maybe something a little out of the ordinary, maybe a little hard, maybe something that the normal person wouldn't do. Maybe if it's even just bringing a card home to your spouse, and you know, most people don't do that every day. So even something that's small, but you choose something every day that's just a little bit leveled up. And if you start doing those things every day, it's just a step. You know, the same with the physical. If these were just steps, I would have never dreamed that I could do an Ironman. I couldn't even swim, right? But it was just those choices every day added up until eventually I'm farther down the road than I was a year ago. And so the everyday is so, so important. Don't take it for granted.
Yes, I love that. Jason?
I would just echo that with, you know, taking small action steps, because nobody goes from 0 to 100. You know, it's always all that hard work, all those small steps, taking action behind the scenes, and then you see the outcome. You know, then you see the finished product, and it's it's a long haul for everybody. So, but you got to start with taking some kind of action, you know, persistent action towards your goals.
And you enjoy that journey. That's the last thing. Do you enjoy that every day? It's not just about the end. Like I know Ed Milet did a podcast with a neurosurgeon who said, yeah, there's more dopamine released when you learn to enjoy that every day.
And
yeah, it's an awesome one.
You get more during the journey, not the destination.
Yes. Yeah. And then there's no low. There's no low there's no after the fact low, because that wasn't the height, right? The height is every day. And that's how you truly create joy within your house and within your family and within your heart. I love every day. I truly love waking up every day. It's exciting every day that I wake up.
It can be, and it is a choice. And if you think happiness is going to be based once you get to a destination, I've been there, done that. I was miserable. and you realize through gratitude that right here and now, as Joy was saying, enjoying the journey, it changes everything. It really does. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chaz.
Everybody out there, most importantly, make the most of your day. Go rock this day.